Inside info on BYU with Cougar Insider Mitch Harper of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
How did Mitch get Rage Against the Machine to play his opener?
No problem. You make requests, we come through. You can nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know, by the way, for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Here's what we're trying to do. Get people to get on there to honor the folks who are the youth sports volunteer in their neighborhood who does a phenomenal job. So all you have to do is go to KSLSports.com/contest. You've got that person in mind who takes on way more with these kids and coaching your kids and helping them out, and they don't get that recognition. We can recognize them on the air, okay? So KSLSports.com/contest. We'll recognize them on the air. We'll also give them a prize courtesy of the folks of Hercules Credit Union, which is, of course, going to throw in a Visa gift card. And then Beehive Meals, who's also the sponsor of this, is going to give them $200 to spend at Beehive Meals. So there you go. Honor those folks who make the significant sacrifice to teach our youth about sports and just to go the extra mile with our youth sports volunteers. KSLSports.com/contest. Joining us on the program right now, Mitch Harper, BYU Insider for KSLSports.com. Mitch, what's going on, man? Are you already in Orlando? Are you at Disney World right now?
I am in Florida. I'm seeing some family. I'm seeing some family right now, so it's got to be out here a little bit earlier than a typical BYU road trip.
Mitch, I didn't know you were related to Florida Man.
Yeah, I am. Well, Utah man who now moved to Florida for work. So,
well, hopefully he avoids arrest more than actual Florida man does. So
yeah.
All right. Well, quite a weird week for BYU because anytime they have to go to Orlando, that's a long trip, man. I know that this is one of those Big 12 trips that we looked at on the schedule, and we always went, well, we knew that was going to be a part of it when all four of those teams joined the conference when BYU did. But making that trip out there and maintaining that level of excellence that BYU's been having so far this year, how do they do it this week against the Knights?
It's definitely a challenging trip. I mean, BYU will get into town here in about 2 more hours, and BYU historically has not fared well in Florida, but they have won their last 2 games here. I think that BYU just got to bounce back on stopping the run. UCF, when you look at this football team, on paper they've got talent. They've got guys that were highly recruited, a top 5 roster by the talent composite ratings on 24/7 Sports. So they had highly recruited players, whether it was out of high school or in the transfer portal, but it just feels like the UCF, locker room, there's some questions there about that group because they had players leave for the portal. Now, Jakari Brown, the new quarterback, he's maybe injected a little bit of life, kind of like Nick Marshall did for Gus Malzahn when he was at Auburn, and they made that run late in the season to a BCS national title game. But I don't see any threat through the air for UCF right now. If BYU can get back to who they've been in stopping the run, BYU should win this football game. And I think that's just the biggest question here for BYU, and that's just kind of what everyone's waiting to see. And I feel like I feel pretty optimistic that BYU does bounce back in this game because I do buy the notion that Mike Gundy out of a bye week a week ago was a tough out, and I'm willing to give BYU a little bit of maybe a mulligan on that one. Now, if they have those same issues again stopping the run, that's a little bit more concerning because, again, UCF is completely one-dimensional.
Yeah, UCF's the 3rd best rushing team in the country. Harvey's the 5th best running back in the country as far as yards go. Obviously, the run game is the one thing that has to be in check for BYU to win this game. They've got to find a way to at least contain that running attack. But another concern I have, Mitch, is the turnovers. They've been able to get away with it, but they were negative in the turnover margin against Oklahoma State. How have they been able to overcome that, and is that another concern heading into this game in Orlando?
Well, I think it's always a little bit of concern with Jake Retzloff, and I know Jake, got it done late, and he delivered in the clutch for really no BYU quarterback under Kalani has done. And it's not like Kalani's been trotting out slouches at quarterback. He's had 3 NFL QBs, And Jake was the first one to win a game with less than a minute to go, and put together a game-winning touchdown drive. So, Jake can come through in the clutch for BYU, but he's also last week reminded you there's going to be some throws where he gets a little bit too aggressive and he tries to thread the needle when it's not there, and he has to avoid that. UCF secondary and defenses as a whole is much better than Oklahoma State's. And Oklahoma State was pretty banged up last week, and poor tackling. You saw that from the Pokes, and BYU in stretches could have a lot of success. That's why I think BYU, when we talked about the run game for UCF, they got to turn early and often to LJ Martin, who had a breakout performance last week, and 120 yards for LJ. I don't think that's being talked about enough because it got overlooked because of the late game heroics from Retzloff and Darius Laster. But LJ Martin looked fresh. He looked like a guy that's ready for the back half of the season, where many guys are banged up, nicks and bruises. LJ, despite navigating some injuries with the shoulder and the ankle, he looks fresh and he looks ready to go, and he's kind of regained his confidence too, which I thought was noteworthy. He was pretty candid about that with the media this week about how he did have some questions and about his ability just to get back to his usual self. And I think that performance was huge. And he's RB1. He's always been head and shoulders the best running back BYU has. They got to turn to him a lot in this game, and I think that can help the cause of avoiding turnovers against a UCF team that they've been banged up in their front seven, and I think BYU can take advantage of that area.
I know that the theme that for this team this year's been, we knew how good we were, you guys just didn't know. And it was like, well, we also saw a team that was 2-7 in conference last year and returning most of the same guys who had that performance. And so how is it that they are dealing with all the attention that they're getting? I know that they pretend like it's not there. They don't really focus on all that, but it would be really hard to avoid the fact that everybody's talking about you being a college football playoff contender.
No question. And I mean, last week was kind of unusual. Going into the Oklahoma State game about 5 or so hours before kickoff against Oklahoma State, you just saw this wave of BYU players posting things on Instagram. It was like this post, these cool poses and in-game action, but you're just thinking, are these guys dialed into this game? Like, again, I know it's Instagram. It's just part of what it is today. They're young people. I get it. But it was kind of just this weird, are they more worked up about Instagram likes and capitalizing on this wave than being ready for this Oklahoma State game? And then you saw how they played against Oklahoma State, and you're like, well, maybe they were a little bit distracted, and maybe they're not taking Oklahoma State as serious. And honestly, I think last week served as a good reminder. I think Jay Hill kind of talked about it this week, but maybe a little bit of a reality check. He didn't quite coin it that way, but just, hey, you got to get back on track. Like, you're a good football team, and I don't think the nation is giving BYU enough credit for what they've done to this point. But if you want to be in that top tier where you're a conference champion of a Power 4 league, you've got to get better. This is not enough to say that you've suddenly arrived. So, BYU has got to be dialed in here, and they're going to have an extra day out here to be focused. And these 2 time zone games we've seen in college football this year, that's been a kind of a storyline in these national conferences that the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC have become. It's a tough deal. I mean, last week we saw Arizona State go to Cincinnati and really struggled. And, BYU is going to go to UCF this week, and then West Virginia is going to go to Arizona this weekend. It's a challenging deal when you're going a couple time zones. So BYU's got to be laser focused. But I do think, too, this UCF fan base kind of seems like they're fading on this team, and they're kind of down and out on Gus Malzahn. I'm expecting a good showing from BYU fans to maybe kind of help the cause a little bit for BYU. But, yeah, BYU's got to play at a much higher level this week than they did last.
I know a lot of BYU fans that will never miss a chance to go to Orlando. We all know Disney's a big draw.
Oh, yes.
I get it. So there'll be a lot of BYU fans there for sure. There were a lot of BYU fans at LaVell Edwards Stadium last week who put on a good show for AJ Dybantsa. And he's in the news this week because word got out that he's going to be commanding a lot of money in NIL, and BYU still mentioning that. What have you heard about his visit to BYU, and what have you heard about the amount of money it may cost to get Dybantsa if he chooses BYU?
Yeah, I mean, the money's going to be, I'm sure, off the charts. It's going to be a high dollar amount. It's always tough to really get a true sense of what the exact figure is going to be, but BYU's prepared to do whatever's necessary to, compete with top end talent. And Kevin Young's made it clear from the moment he arrived that having a competitive NIL structure was critical, and he feels that they've got plenty of they've got a competitive NIL war chest to compete with really anyone and be in a place to compete with the highest recruits. And AJ Dybantsa, it's all about preparing for the pros, and I remember when I talked to his dad, Ace Dybantsa, in early August at Utah Prep, he talked about how Kevin Young is a pro coach, and he operates like a pro, and that really impressed him then. And that was the pitch once again, this time around, where it was hands-on, like they're going through drills. It wasn't this, oh, look at this facility, look at this study hall, like, the old recruiting visits. This was about this is what we're going to do to get you to the NBA. And I think there's not many guys better than Kevin Young to give that pitch right now in college basketball. And I think that's one of the interesting things here about BYU basketball and the on-court results this year. It's still to be determined what they're really going to be. I'm very curious myself to see how they're going to fare in the Big 12. They're not going to be tested much in non-conference play, but Kevin Young could be a new trendsetter in college basketball, where if he hits and has success and lands the nation's number one recruits, you got to think these power conference programs that pride themselves on basketball are going to be saying, okay, we need to go comb these assistant benches in the NBA, see who can come to the college ranks to really sell a pro model. I mean, because you look at how he's attacking recruiting, and he's building it out like an NBA front office, where they're analyzing data. They're saying, and they're looking at the production that these guys are putting together on the high school ranks. They're looking at the measurables. What does this 6'9", 200-pound prospect who's shooting 42% from three, what does that warrant in NIL money? And they're looking at the data and trying to get as much as they can from the sources that they have to then put a compelling pitch together. I mean, they're analyzing this. It's data driven, and they're going to go chase anyone. I mean, BYU's offer pool for the 2025 class, I mean, they've extended offers to many of the top 25 recruits in the country. JJ Mandequit's a top 50 recruit at point guard who also plays with AJ Dybantsa at Utah Prep. AJ Dybantsa, BYU is a great place to pitch, as a landing spot for him, because he can avoid distractions. He's made it clear that he's a one and done, and that's going to be that. And why not have a head coach who has been around the league? He's coached Kevin Durant. He's coached J.J. Redick. He's coached so many guys that have been in the NBA, Devin Booker, who've been high-level, prolific scorers, and someone like Dybantsa, who's, an all-timer in terms of, high school prospects, like generational-type guy that has an ability to create shots. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense from all those parties involved, and BYU's got the NIL resources to compete. It makes a lot of sense on their side, too.
Mitch Harper, our BYU Insider for KSLSports.com. He, of course, hosts Cougar Sports Saturday, also on Saturdays with KSL News Radio. He and Matt Baimonte do a phenomenal job. Mitch, we're looking forward to this weekend, and have fun covering the Cougs down there in Orlando. Looking forward to it, guys. Take care. There you go. Mitch Harper. Could you imagine, is that legal, by the way? You could bring a guy on and you're like, hey, come on this recruiting trip. Bring your sneakers. We're going to work you out. Actually, let's start running some lines. I don't know if I don't think it would be against the rules, obviously. I'm just saying, that's a move. Give me 20, Dybantsa. He's like, that's a slow time for you, kid. Let's see your. Before you commit, I need you to commit. Yeah. I love that. That's pretty cool.
I'm sure that's how it went down.
Yeah. No, but I mean, have him come in. I mean, maybe it's a little bit something different. You go, look, here's what we want to do with you. Here, this kid, well, get over here.
I love it. That was their approach.
They peel off and they make him hit some outside jumpers, and he gets pumped. He's in that facility making shots. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, could you imagine a better game to go to that they had this weekend?
Oh man,
this past weekend,
65,000 fans.
Wait, was that this last week?
It was the Oklahoma State game. He was there with JJ Mandequit.
I know, and the whole student section saying, we want AJ.
They want both those kids in Cougar Blue, and they've got a shot.
That's crazy.
Which is nuts, right?
I don't know what's more crazy. BYU landing AJ Dybantsa or going to the college football playoff?
It's Dybantsa by a mile.
Which one would you prefer, though? The
college football playoff is probably what BYU fans would say, but BYU ever landing a generational NBA talent is just mind-boggling.
For $3 million or more?
Who cares?
Oh.
Well, the irony would be
it's crazy.
If Ryan Smith helps make this happen and then they end up landing a lottery pick to get AJ Dybantsa to play for the Jazz, which I'm sure is, again, the assignment.
Cooper Flagg and AJ Dybantsa back-to-back years?
Why not?
Sure.
Championship.
All right, let's take a break here. We'll come back. We have a baseball update. Anytime we have any kind of an update.
That's a curveball.
I know. Hey, I see what you did there. That was very PK of you, by the way. Very dad joke.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I know. It's good. It means we've got some chemistry here. All right, it's good. We're going to come back and talk about how if there's anybody who's even tempted to halfway look around to see where they could play a game while a stadium's being built, we'll have Electric Avenue ready for you when we come back. Stay with us, 97.5 BKSL Sports Zone.